It seems a distant goal at a time when English churches resound with anti-Darwinian rhetoric, torch-bearing mobs threaten Oxford, and Emma herself is torn by the conflict between romantic love and religious duty. The tempest culminates in a public debate in a crowded London hall, where Darwin and Wilberforce argue over the ancestral relations of ape and man. Darwin expounds, sings, that is, his doctrine eloquently, with gentle humor, while Wilberforce, under the fierce lamp of logic, is revealed as a jealous poseur. Darwin, a true scholar, a headline in the next morning's London Times proclaims, calming the general excitement and smoothing the way for Emma and Darwin to marry. But Wilberforce won't suffer himself to be humiliated in such a manner. He accuses Darwin of blasphemy and personal insult and challenges him to a duel. Darwin reluctantly accepts, seeing this as his only chance to rid himself of the meddlesome bishop, and both men climb to a craggy meadow high in the wild and wind-blown mountains that loom over Oxford University. The climax of the movie is essentially that duel, with ruses and low tricks attempted by Wilberforce and thwarted by Darwin. There is singing and pistol shooting and some lively screaming from Emma, and more pistol shooting and wrestling about on cliff edges until Darwin stands wounded but victorious over the cooling corpse of his ruthless enemy. Followed by wedding ceremony, bells rung, cheerful noises, and so forth. Julian gave his approval to this outline, though he took a certain pleasure in pointing out the distance between our dramatic liberties and historical truth in the strictest sense. If Oxford has Alps, he liked to say, then perhaps New York City has a volcano, geography being so flexible. But these were amicable objections, not serious ones, and he understood our motives in remodeling the obstinate clay of history. As for the songs and their lyrics, so important to the success of any enterprise, what could we do but recruit Calixta's formidable talents? Calixta is Adam's wife at this point. Julian supplied her with a biography of Darwin recovered from the Dominion archives, along with works discussing the taxonomy of beetles, the geography of South America, the habitat and life cycle of pirates, and such subjects. Calixta undertook her assignment very seriously and read all these books with close attention. Several times, when the household help was absent, I was delegated to attend to Flaxseed's infant requirements, thus their daughter. I was delegated to attend to Flaxseed's infant requirements, which were numerous and urgent, while Calixta continued her creative work at the desk of the piano. In a few days, she had sketched out arias and melodies for all three acts of Charles Darwin. She presented these to Julian on a night when he arrived, along with Pastor Stepney, for our weekly script conference. Julian leafed through the music and lyric sheets with deepening appreciation, judging by the expression on his face. Then he turned to Calixta and said, "You ought to sing some of it for us. Magnus doesn't read music, but I want him to hear it." Most of the arias are male parts, Calixta said, though Emma Wedgwood has a song or two. She does, too. I think the first line of the song that Calixta writes for Emma Wedgwood is I had not entertained the thought that I could love a scholar, for they read from books an awful lot and seldom spend $1. The scholars in the audience would appreciate it. That's understood. Here, Julian said, handing over one of the first sections in which the young Charles Darwin, during a beetling expedition outside Oxford, spots his cousin Emma in the woods. Calixta sat down at the piano and picked up the song at the point where Darwin is inspecting the contents of his bug net, singing, and you'll forgive me if I don't sing this, I don't think you would forgive me if I did, singing, "These creatures yet are all alike in several ways that I find striking, 6 legs fixed on a tripart body, external shells, some plain, some gaudy, some have wings or hoofs or hair, distinctions, yes, 8, 10, a dozen, and yet in general structure they're as like as I am to my cousin. Here comes my cousin now, and as she pauses in the shady hedgewood, I hope she'll turn her eyes to me, that young and pious Emma Wedgwood. A white summer dress, blue summer bonnet, a red coccinellid clinging on it." "Stop," cried Julian. "What's a coccinellid?" "Ladybug," said Calixta. "Very good, carry on." "A life intrigues me without doubt, and yet in truth, for truth will out, I find Miss Emma's pretty legs more interesting than stately shade." There were a few more interruptions from Julian when he needed some point clarified, but for the most part, Calixta sang without interruption, the whole score, except for one duet, which she couldn't manage by herself, and the final choral medley. the male parts with gusto and the female parts in a fine contralto, and banged the piano with great enthusiasm and skill. Little Flaxie could not sleep through all this noise, of course, and her nurse eventually brought her down to join us. In the end, we had nearly an hour of Calixta's wonderfully entertaining performance, at the end of which she sat back from the piano with a satisfied smile on her face. She undid the scarf she was wearing, and down her slender form there spread black ringlets, rich and rare, while Julian clapped his applause and the rest of us joined him for a long ovation. Even Flaxie attempted to clap, though she was inexpert at it, and her flailing hands passed in midair more than they glided. It was altogether the finest time we had had for quite a while, and we might have been some large family, joined together after a long absence, taking delight in one another's company, and never heeding the griefs and dangers that circled about us like carrion birds over a tubercular mule.